Hello, and welcome to Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts,
Gustavo,
Ivan,
and Walter, and today we are going to talk about Discernment of Spirits. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Guys, are you looking for a nice gift for your wife or for your mom? Is your daughter celebrating her birthday or First Holy Communion soon? Be sure to check out Telos Art for a beautiful selection of saint medals and heirloom jewelry. Celebrate the people you love with a timeless gift, one that is both functional and sentimental. Jewelry can mark a special moment or occasion and can be a reminder of that event each time that it's worn. A medal mom wears now can be passed down to future generations. And you can feel good about shopping at this family-owned business because Catholic jewelry from Telos Art is inspired by truth, goodness, and beauty. Telos Art is the place to find unique miraculous medals, vintage jewelry, and one-of-a-kind designs that are sure to inspire and delight your loved ones. Find out more information at telosartshop.com. That's TELOS artshop.com. Use discount code Barbatus at checkout to get 20% off any purchase. And now to the show.
And we're back. Hello. Thank you for being here with us. We are happy that you are here.
How happy are we?
Very happy.
I'm ecstatic.
Static.
I'm giddy.
You're giddy. You're ridiculous is what you are. I had a really good topic for banter, but now it escapes me. Gosh.
You probably should have talked about that before we started recording.
Yeah. Have you guys watched the new Pixar movie, Luca?
No.
You haven't watched it?
I've seen clips of it because we try to show Lily, but she is interested for like the first 5 minutes. And then she remembers that she has to go jump off something. So
yeah,
she'll completely abandon
priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The premise is kind of weird because it's like a sea monster that after it goes out of the water becomes human. So becomes like a human boy. It's kind of funny because Maya Rudolph and Jim Gaffigan do the voices of the parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. And there are like a bunch of like Italian slang and Italian pop music in the soundtrack that is really cool. And like one of the main things that the characters want to do is like buy a Vespa to like explore the world.
It doesn't get any more Italian than trying to buy a Vespa.
Right? Which in a way is like, is that a cliche? It is.
I mean, look at Coco and Los Días de los Muertos.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like everybody can call, foul play because like, oh, well,
wait, is Maya Rudolph and Jim Gaffigan Italian?
No, Jim Gaffigan I think is like German, Irish. Okay. Maya Rudolph.
Because you know how usually when they get, like if they're making a film about, I don't know, like a certain culture, they always get like either Hispanic or Latin.
I mean, basically they are sea monsters, and I don't think Maya Rudolph and Jim Gaffigan are.
But doesn't it take place in Italy?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Porto Rosso. So, yeah, it's very funny. Watch it. If you haven't, for those that don't have kids, you probably would still enjoy it. But anyways, it just made me want to eat a lot of pasta and, gelato and all that delicious food. Which in a way, if you think about it, is a lot like Mexican culture. Is like the Italian nonas are going to be like trying to feed you or like force feed you.
If you say no, it's like a big slap in the face.
Seriously. At one part of the story, they're like trying to act like humans. So they see two fishermen that are yelling at another like boat that is driving so fast. It's like, what's the matter with you, stupido? So now they just repeat that phrase to everybody. And they repeat that phrase to two grandmas. And they get slapped with like an umbrella and a handbag. So that has nothing to do with the topic that we are going to talk about today.
I was gonna see if he's
Where's the
gonna
segue?
like add in a segue to
I know
from going to pasta to what we're gonna be talking about today. But
that would have been epic.
you're losing your touch.
I know. I was listening to the season finale of season 1, and that segue was pretty good. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm losing my touch. I should have.
That's what happens when we take time off. You know,
I know.
you ever come back to
We're
school
rusty.
after summer vacation and you forgot how to write? Like,
Yeah.
you don't know how to write. You're back when we used pens and pencils, kids. You know, I would come back from vacation and my hand would be like all weird and tense.
Like your muscles are like trying to get used to how you grab the pencil.
I hadn't held a pencil in 3 months.
So you're trying to write your name, Gustavo G.
Yeah.
Cabrón.
or like the lines are all squiggly because my hand is like shaking because it's all tense. Yeah, that used to happen to me when I would come back from vacation a lot.
You know, to me, it would happen the opposite when I was in college. Finals was like super stressful, like all-nighters and exams and all that. And then when I was done with exams and presentations and projects, and I didn't have anything to do, I would get sick because my body was like, okay, he's not stressed anymore. This is the time that we strike so he can actually rest.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be very, very weird. Like in the summer and in December, I would get sick invariably after finals. It's very random.
I get sick for a different reason. Just celebrate.
Well, yeah, there's that. But anyway, let's see if we can make sense out of this episode. We are getting into season 2, and as you heard in the intro of the episode, we are going to talk about Discernment of Spirits. And the reason why we want to talk about this topic this week is because a few days ago it was Saint Ignatius of Loyola's feast day, and he basically wrote the book literally on Discernment of Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
He took a cannonball to the leg because he was a military man, and part of his conversion was that in the place where he was recovering from those wounds, the only 2 books that they had available was The Life of Christ and The Life of the Saints. So he read and reread all of these, and he realized that the actual glory was living for Christ and becoming a saint, and not like what he was after in terms of like military glory.
Mm-hmm.
So he becomes a priest, and I don't know like a lot about Ignatius' temperament, but he strikes me like a very type A kind of personality, very meticulous, very process oriented. So I can really relate with him, and you can probably tell if you have listened to the podcast that he was very aware of all of the things that were happening in his spiritual life, and he would document all of those things. And in his spiritual writings, he basically recorded his experience in a way that it served as religious exercises. That's what he called it when he was starting the Company of Jesus, or the Jesuits, with Francis Xavier and Bonaventure and all of those good guys from the OGs that were roommates in college in France and whatnot. So I have to also say that I'm a big fanboy of Father Timothy Gallagher, OMB, of the Oblates of the Virgin Mary. And this religious community is super cool. They're dedicated to retreats and spiritual formation according to the spiritual exercises. And Father Timothy Gallagher has a podcast as well on the Discernment of Spirits. And this is part of like a bigger platform that they have. It's called Discerning Hearts. Check it out. They have a whole bunch of stuff in there on top of Discernment of Spirits. And Father Gallagher also has a plethora of books about the exam prayer and Discernment of Spirits for couples, Discernment of Spirits for, it's almost like chicken soup for the soul of the teenager and things like that. Well, not
The Catholic version?
the Catholic version, but, maybe not that pop, but, to some extent, he has riffed off Discernment of Spirits in a number of ways. Well, when we say Discernment of Spirits, it sounds a little bit dramatic, right? But it's not really that, like, it's a very ordinary thing. Basically, I guess if we want to make it more simplistic, in our walk of faith, we're going to have ups and downs, like everything. We're going to have good days, bad days, and Discernment of Spirits can help us identify where we are and act accordingly. And we have from Scripture that the just man falls 7 times a day. So, how do we get up and keep going? Basically, it's a tool that we can have in our tool belt to improve our awareness, our understanding, and our actions, which are 3 main things that we need to work on: awareness, understanding, and action. So keep that in mind as we move forward with the content. So Ignatius talks about the good spirit and the bad spirit. So the good spirit is going to refer to the Holy Spirit moving in us, and the bad spirit refers to the enemy. So that's another important concept. I'm just laying the foundation for going into the rules. And in our day-to-day, if we are aware of these 2 forces at play, then we can start understanding how both of them manifest in our lives. Things like sadness, anxiety, lies, and obstacles in our lives are things that the bad spirit brings. And then on the opposite side of that, we have joy, peace, truth, and removal of obstacles, which come from the good spirit. We need to understand that it is not our strength, but God's strength that will do this in our lives. And we just need to look at all the others that have done it, namely the community of saints. So far, so good. Ivan, Gustavo?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So this is kind of oversimplified because we also want to be sensitive with time. We could probably do several different a series of episodes on this, but it's just like if we were going to do a primer super quick on the 14 rules of Discernment of Spirits according to Ignatius of Loyola. Let's just try to go one by one, and feel free to chime in if you have any comment on this. So the first rule, it frames it in kinds of like a situational role play almost kind of setting. Basically talks about a person who is away from the church, who is far from God, filling the imagination with images of sensual pleasures. Then the good spirit stings and bites in order to make the one change. Kind of having this lingering questions. Are you proud of the way that you are living? So this biting of the of the conscience, of like the inner voice that tells you like you could be doing better, or this doesn't feel right, that is a good sign. It is like the sparks, like the beginnings of someone who wants to come back to God. And recognizing that, like maybe that is you who are listening, that you realize, you know what, this thing that I did that was a little bit dishonest, that wasn't right, and I need to make it right. So that's the first rule of discernment of spirits. You need to be aware of that, the stinging in the consciousness. That's the word, right?
Jiminy Cricket, essentially.
Jiminy Cricket. Thank you. I was trying to
pulling at your strings a little bit. That's what I can relate it to.
Yes. Just give me a little whistle. Rule 2.
Sorry, my Siri just went off.
I was wondering, like, if
Who are you
played a
talking
video.
to? I was like,
Not right now, Siri.
you watching YouTube, Ivan, in the middle of this?
Are you asking Siri, what are the 14 rules
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Discernment of Spirits?
Who is Siri? Who's Timothy Gallagher?
Siri, who's Jiminy Cricket?
Okay. Rule number 2. A person who is moving towards God, then the enemy tries to bite, to dishearten. The good spirit eases the obstacle. So this is kind of like the opposite side of the example, right? This is someone who's already making that move towards God. Then what is going to happen is that the enemy or the bad spirit is going to try to discourage that person from achieving that closeness to God. That's when obstacles happen. That's when
Temptation.
All of those things that we recognize, like, man, being Catholic doesn't make your life easier. If anything, it just makes it a little bit more complicated.
I think a lot of people can relate to that, because it's a common theme. The closer you get to God, the more you're living your faith fervently, the more attacks you're going to get. It's like the devil doesn't like it, essentially. The devil doesn't want you to have a relationship with Christ. So he'll put that little nibble in your ear.
Yeah.
It's like pray a rosary, watch The Office.
Yeah, it can.
What do you want to do?
It can be a little obvious like that sometimes, but like in my case, when I started growing in my faith, like intellectually, that I really started like diving into books. I was a lot more intentional about reading up on the saints, about getting a holy hour, doing those things, committing to. It was right after the retreats and stuff that we went through. Suddenly at work, I got like promoted, so I had like people under me and I was in charge of people. So that kind of like grew my ego on the wrong side in some cases.
Okay.
Because I was like feeling too good about myself.
Well, that's the
know what I mean?
You have the chance to the temptation to be like, it's the gospel of prosperity, right? Where, on the other extreme of that, you would have like the problem of evil. Like, why do bad things happen to good people? Very devout people that have a lot of tragedy in their lives. You could see it as both. So definitely, that is, you start to see like the fruit of your closeness to God when you're living to the potential of like what you are created to become.
Correct.
But yeah, it's very easy to fall into like, look at what I did.
Exactly.
Instead of
what God allowed me to do, or how can I use this new skill set or this new position at work to better myself, better the people that I am in charge of, instead of thinking, wow, look at me, I'm super great,
Right.
Oh, awesome. I got a raise. Oh, that's great. I'm not saying that specifically about me, but if you find yourself in that situation, that's where the discernment comes in, because every action has, and a deacon used to tell this to me, he would say, every decision that you make in your life, you're picking up a God flag or you're picking up the devil's flag,
Oh, that's very Ignatius as well. He
Yeah.
calls the two standards, right?
Correct. And that's on a daily basis, whether it's like watching The Office or praying the rosary or, well, watch The Office after the rosary, things, or don't watch The Office and do something else. Or so that's discernment. And it's wherever anybody is at that specific time.
Yeah.
God doesn't want us to not watch The Office or have those moments of leisure, but it has to be well ordered and well balanced. That's what I think. And that's where the discernment comes in, because as humans, we're just going to want the sweet. All right.
Yes,
We just want the sweet. Got to have a salad every once in a while. As much as I don't like to admit it, I'm not a salad guy. I know I have to eat him.
I mean, if you cover it with blue cheese crumble.
Correct. And dressing.
Or you could just be Ron Swanson and be like, since I am a rabbit, no thank you. No, since I'm not a rabbit, no thank you.
Exactly.
So sorry to derail you, but
no,
I
think it's good.
When we first started talking about the topic of discernment of spirits, I got to be honest, it's a little foreign to me because I haven't read the book. But the more I started like getting into just listening to it, prepping for the show and stuff like that, it's pretty much about decision making and letting the Spirit illuminate you. That's a very simplistic way of putting it. I know there's a lot more to it and we will get to it, but it's about making good use of the virtue of prudence. Thank you so much.
Ya me pegó el 20. It's like TED Talks for Catholic spirituality.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yeah.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Mm.
You read Atomic Habits, right? By
Mhm.
James Clear.
I didn't read it. I listened to the
the
audiobook.
same thing.
But
Well, me too.
you know what? I grasp things better when I read them. So I feel like I need to
To read
either
it.
listen to it again or I need to read it.
Well, in like a secular form, James Clear talks about habit stacking. He's very into like habits. So what he says is that every decision that you make, you're casting a vote towards the person that you want to become.
Mhm.
So if you want to be a healthy person, you start casting votes towards eating healthy and exercising and going to sleep at a decent time and all of those things that align with that lifestyle. Well, we could make the case for if you want to become a saint, you need to cast votes towards the lifestyle that defines sainthood, which is closeness to God. So that's good. I like it. Let's see. Rules 3 and 4 kind of go together. Rule 3 goes. It talks about consolation. Consolation is basically a search in the heart. Is reassurance from God. Consolation are the moments where you are at your mountaintops with God, like what you mentioned, like right after retreat, that you have like this retreat high.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm gonna set the world on fire, not word on fire. Please, Bishop Aaron, don't sue us. And you know, and those kind of moments that you have, like when you have the gift of tears after you receive communion or what have you. And then rule 4 is going to be desolation, which is exactly the opposite. There's this heaviness, less energy for prayer, and a real obstacle to this spiritual life. So both of those things are a reality in our spiritual life. So just knowing a name for those two, at least for me, it has helped me to identify, to say, you know what, I feel very close to God. I got this consolation, and you know, consolation can be very ephemeral, and you can go from consolation to desolation like in a flip on a dime. I don't know, is that the idiom? I probably butchered it.
I think so, yeah.
I'm really bad with idioms. You will learn that.
English as a second language, people.
I know. So it can be little things like, Mateo is starting to giggle, So
Mhm.
those like little things that you see him like, ay, mijo, qué chulo, que se ríe, no? But then, he wakes up at like 2, 3 in the morning, and Diana's like, can you give him a bottle because I just laid him down? And I'm like, I want to sleep. And now all of a sudden it's not that cute. That's not necessarily desolation, but desolation for me would be like when we would take all the kids to mass and they behave horribly.
Mhm.
They're like, Lord, we are trying. Like, we want to bring all the kids to mass, but today was like a complete shit show.
It's like, you call me to be fruitful,
Yeah.
but come on, man.
Like,
help me out a bit.
yeah, like give me a break. But you need to show up and put in the hours and and just push through, which is exactly rule 5. So we know that consolation are mountaintops, desolations are like down in the pits. Rule 5 says that in times of desolation, never make a change to your spiritual life's plan.
Mhm.
So if you kind of had like a loosely put together rule of life to say, I don't know, I'm going to pray 15 minutes every day. And, I'm going to fast on Fridays or at least abstain from meat. And, we're going to do a family rosary or what I'm going to do the liturgy of the hours or whatever you have. And you get to a point of desolation where you're like, I feel God so far in my life. This is not working. I'm going to stop praying.
Mhm.
That is what Ignatius says is don't make any changes.
Well, Mother Teresa had that years of desolation.
Almost 2/3 of her life.
Correct. And she didn't veer. That's a perfect example of point 5. That she didn't veer. She kept doing exactly what God called her to do. And it's, how do you do that? In terms of, because she didn't hear or she didn't feel, from what I remember.
Yeah, she had no consolation.
It was a dryness.
Saint Teresa of Lisieux had the same thing, that she doubted like the existence of God towards the end of her life, which is kind of scary to be like, that is like the last stage that the soul is going to reach. St. John of the Cross talks about that as well with the Dark Night of the Soul, which sounds like a movie about Batman, but it's not really it.
Sounds like a movie of Batman that Christopher Nolan should have directed.
Right? The Dark Night of the Soul. Maybe Ivan, we should make that movie.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Deal.
Rule number 6. When that happens, turn to prayer, examine what's happening, and then have small gestures of suitable penance. So what Ignatius tells us here is, I don't remember which is the saint that has this quote that says like, when we should pray 30 minutes every day, but when we don't have time to pray, we should pray 1 hour. So this is this.
This was the other way around, right?
Or something like that.
Pray 30 minutes if you don't have time. If you do have time, you should pray an hour. Something like that.
We'll find the quote.
Exactly.
But the point being that we need to lean on prayer and examine what's happening and basically presenting all of these things that we are going through to God. And one of the ways that we can go back on the right path would be doing small gestures of penance. Maybe you give up watching The Office or buying that cold brew from your favorite coffee shop, or passing on dessert, things like that will make you say no to these little things, so then you can rely on God. I feel like based on my personal experience of Exodus 90, that is a very extreme case of like when you strip most comfort, like the adult pacifiers, which are like TV, social media, things like that. You have nothing else to lean on other than God, right? So when you try to find that comfort, your comfort is in God, and that's where we should go for, instead of numbing ourselves with other things that are not God. And I think we already covered this, but rule 7, you can get through desolation. So even if you are experiencing desolation, you can go through it. Of course, there are going to be extreme cases, like we already mentioned, Mother Teresa. But for the most part, hopefully we don't have to go like a number of decades through desolation, but eventually, by leaning on prayer, by leaning on penance, we'll get through it. Rule number 8, desolation will pass and consolation will return. So it's kind of like ups and downs, like we said. Rule 9, it talks about 3 reasons why God allows us to go through desolation. So there are reasons why. It's not just because. The first one would be to see changes that we need to make.
Mm-hmm.
The second one would be to grow in the ability to resist desolation. And the third would be to keep us from complacency and self-satisfaction. So basically to keep us humble in the spiritual life. So this is a very like internal castle kind of Teresa of Avila kind of spirituality, like whatchamacallit, the internal life. Is that's what it's called? La vida interior. I was trying to translate directly. Inner life.
Your internal life. Your inner life.
Inner life. That is not just what is happening in in your soul, in the movements of your soul. So make changes. We need to be aware of what we need to change.
I guess it's like getting out of your comfort zone. Right. Maybe God allows that to it's kind of like a kick in the like. Well, God doesn't kick us, but
no, it's like it's put a fire under.
Yeah, you got to be vigilant. You can't just be complacent. Is that kind of like going down that path? Because if we need to make changes, it's because we're getting soft, essentially, or we're getting like too complacent, or we're like, okay, yeah, I'm praying enough. But there's always more that can get us towards sainthood, and I think that's kind of like what happens when you spend 9 months in a cave, right? Because you're like detached from everything. You're solely dependent on God. And even in that point, what happens if you come out of the cave at month 10 and you feel this desolation? But at least you are aware of it. Mm-hmm. It's the awareness part that I think most of us miss the mark on, because especially in our culture that it's so like instant gratification. The moment something doesn't go our way, it's like we blame it on God, or we blame it, why did I get this life, or why am I being tested like this? It's always like we put it like on God.
Yeah.
It's like, what can you do? What do you have available to you?
Or what do you need to learn?
Yeah, exactly. What can you take from this experience that will make you better, make you holier, or prevent that from happening again?
Yeah, and I think also we have talked about it, not on air, but there's that sense of like, should I be doing more? Is there something more than I could do? Like, with our families, volunteering in the parish, getting involved in, like a board of directors of some Catholic
Mhm.
organization, things like that. So complacency for sure is going to be one of the things that we need to battle. Um, the next rule is going to be number 10. It says, in times of consolation, take strength for desolation. And a pro tip that we have for this one would be to build a Catholic Memories catalog, which we have an episode of. I think it's episode 12, season 1.
Mhm.
And we'll put a link to the episode in the show notes as well, so you can check it out. So when you are on those mountaintops, document it, write it down, remember how you felt, and go back to those moments, because the feeling that you had in those mountaintops with God, and you know that it is possible that he'll take you there again. Rule 11 is very simple: humble in consolation, trusting in desolation. The fact that it is simple doesn't mean that it is easy. Being humble in consolation is we're gonna have to fight pride, like Gustavo said. When everything is going well, we tend to forget somehow,
Mhm.
to some extent, that maybe we are this good because God is allowing us for us to be doing that good. And in desolation, we need to trust that we will get out of that desolation, provided that we realize what changes we need to make, how we grow in the ability to resist that desolation, and moving out of complacency. Rule number 12: resist the enemy's temptation right at the very beginning, because that's when it's the easiest. And I thought that this was easier said than done,
Mhm.
because there's always going to be um, times where it is going to be easier to resist temptations than others. I don't know about you too, but when I am tired or hungry or stressed, it's very easy to like um, lean on habitual sin, especially anger. I think it's one of the things that I struggle the most with, to just like start screaming like a lunatic and losing my temper.
Start punching something.
Yeah.
Kicking dogs or something. I
know.
remember something about that, kicking dogs.
Kicking
Yeah.
the dog he doesn't have.
Yeah, we have talked about that. Just Oliver wants a beagle. I'm like, a beagle?
It's too weak when I kick him. We need a bigger dog.
Yeah. But then not too big that he might
Can bite me back.
Turn on me.
Yeah.
So we're not getting a pit bull.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
not getting a pit bull. Maybe like a labradoodle or something like that. Anyways, but resisting the temptation right at the very beginning, which is going to take time and practice to do this, and just to be like, nope, not today, Satan, not today.
Yeah, you need to catch yourself. And again, that's where the awareness comes in. And how do you get awareness? Well, you need to practice it, and we do that stuff all day long, every day, right? I mean, we just got to make sure that there's cues that we're like, oh, there it goes. That's the red flag.
Yeah. And the examined prayer helps a lot with this. It kind of goes hand in hand. Again, it's part of Jesuit spirituality that Ignatius was asking of anyone who would be part of the Jesuits. Actually need to do it like at midday, at noon, and then at the end of the day. So you go like maybe 5-6 hours, and then you do your examine of how you're doing midday, and then the rest of the day, and from noon until the time that you retire to sleep. So, but
That's tricky for me. I gotta be honest. I'm not good at the examine. I do like a modified version as my head is hitting the pillow, trying to recount these. And with the examine, if you're aware of it, it's not only like recounting the shortcomings, but it's also giving thanks for your blessings that you had all that day. So it's a little bit of both in how you can adjust the following day to not commit the same faults as you did before. There's this great prayer that we'll put it on the show notes as well. That again, if you don't have let's work our way towards that. I think the examine it's essential for Catholic men, for everybody actually. But if you struggle like me, I lean on prayers a lot, and I lean on like little prayer books and stuff like that, and even on apps like Hallow and things like that. So that little prayer is pretty short. You can pray it right at the end of the day, and at least it gives you some accountability with the big guy.
Yeah. Hallow has a really good examination of conscience prayer if you want to check it out. There's also a quote from like Socrates that says that an unexamined life is not worth living or something like that. So I was like, don't just like lose. There's so much richness in the day-to-day that can happen, and sometimes we just like completely forget things that happen because we're just so busy doing all these other things. So maybe if you can write one thing that you are grateful for that day, and one thing that you could have done better to grow closer to God in that day, that could be like a good beginning to do that. I think that I had like a rolling Google document where I had like my my exam examination of conscience for every day, but it started like first a paragraph and then a couple sentences and then like a couple words and then I stopped doing it. It's definitely a habit. You need to keep it up doing it in order for it to so you reap the benefits. We'll link some resources to that. Okay, number 13. We're almost there. Do not be alone in a time of desolation. And I think that this is key for anybody, but especially for men. I think that we are very prone to wanting to white knuckle all of our situations that when things get rough, and not reaching out to be like, I am going to power through this problem by myself. I don't need nobody, because asking for help is a sign of weakness. But in reality, well, at least in this spiritual life, we've talked about the importance of brotherhood, and again, we'll link that episode in the show notes. Go ahead, Ivan.
No, I was just gonna say, like, this is one that just really resonates with me because, I mean, yeah, like when you're down, and then when you're down by yourself, it's just getting out of that hole, back into in the light of Christ, into that consolation. Like, it's very hard to do it by yourself. And with me, it was like that. Like I was exposed to pornography when I was really, really young. I mean, if I could maybe like 6-7 years old. So I struggled with it growing up, and it got to the point where, like, you don't want that for your life, So like I had to, it took me a long time to realize, but like I can't do this by myself. I'm not gonna, stop doing this by myself. So, I know that Walther has helped me a lot with it. I use this app called Covenant Eyes. They're not a sponsor. Maybe they could be.
Yeah. Matt Fred, if you're listening.
Exactly. So like I asked Walther if he could be my accountability partner, and he's I think Walter and my wife have like passwords on my phone where if I'm trying to, like, if I'm trying to go to a website, it won't let me go on it because it's blocking it.
Yeah.
So I've taken steps like that to really help me.
Concrete steps.
Exactly.
Tangible things.
And sometimes, we might think that, yeah, like I can do this by myself, or, I don't want to show that I'm weak and I'm going to ask for help. But that's not really the right mindset to have, because I can't save myself.
Well, that's the devil, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
putting those doubts in your ear and making you feel like you're less than if you ask for help, if you lean on somebody.
It's also pride.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so,
or fear, or like insecurity, all of the things, that it says that the evil spirit, because the good spirit is going to give you
joy,
the opposite
peace.
of that,
Yeah.
So
thanks for sharing that, Ivan. That's awesome.
And it's really important, I think it's the discernment of our weaknesses, which is going to be the following point here. We need to identify those vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And be upfront about it. Take it to the priest, take it to confession. Again, you don't have to do it. We don't have to do it by ourselves. Bishop Barron gives some cool tips for somebody that's discerning, whether that's like discerning your vocation, discerning a professional move in your career, priesthood, whatever. Daily mass, it's a must, as often as you can get it in. A spiritual director is crucial to help you navigate some of these more complex items in life that you don't feel that you have the capacity to face it alone. And perpetual adoration, sometimes it's just good to go and bask in the glow of God.
Yeah.
And tell him, what do you want from me? What can I do today?
Also ask him, show me where I have the wounds, or it hurts here. You're going to the divine physician. We need to know our vulnerable points. We need to be humble enough to recognize that we have those blind spots, and we need to do something about it. So, yeah, I think that's a good place to end it. For now, that's definitely a very rich topic, but this is a good first try at it.
Yeah,
it was a good conversation.
One last point here, where thinking about the discernment of spirits, we got to really think about which path will lead me to greater love of God and greater love of neighbor. Now, it's like Father Mike Schmidt puts it as like doors. It's like discernment is like having 4 doors. It's like the first one, is this a good door? Is this a door I can open? So is this decision actually something I can do? Is this a wise door? Is this the best door for me at this moment in my life? And is this a door that I want? So we'll link to that video, because that kind of like helped me contextualize it a little bit more, because I said I was a little foreign to the topic, and now I'm completely intrigued. But any door that we that we pick, just remember that God is going to be behind that door. But we have to make decisions. We have to take that responsibility on ourselves. Just know that God is behind any one of those doors that we open. So I appreciate it, Walter. You brought this topic, and I was like a little reticent at first, because I was like, I don't know nothing about this. But that's also something that we need to acknowledge. It's like we don't know everything. And it's good to just be exposed to all parts of our faith, to be able to grow in it, and to just be open to what God's telling us with this.
Listen, Jesuits get a bad rep out there in the Catholic world, but there are things from Ignatius that are very good, like this, regardless of what is happening with, I'm pretty sure like everything, there's going to be good Jesuits and bad Jesuits, like there's going to be good Catholics and bad Catholics. But if this is something that helps you to get closer to God, by all means, that's why we're bringing it up. If you didn't know about it and you feel like this is something that's going to help you growing closer to God, that's and Ignatius had a big role in my conversion, so that's probably why it has a special place in my heart. And technically, Father Timothy Gallagher is not a Jesuit, so but
double dipping a little bit there.
Yeah, a little bit. But anyways, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the podcast, sharing it on social media, leaving a rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and recommending it to your friends and family. And if you didn't like it, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes. You can follow us on Instagram at Barbatus Catholic Podcast. Send us an email at hello@barbatuscatholicpodcast.com. On the web, we are at barbatuscatholicpodcast.com, where you will find the show notes for this episode and more. Now go discern those spirits, get the books from Father Timothy Gallagher, and bless Solanus Casey.
Pray for us.
Until the next time.